Hey everyone, it's Rob here. I just thought I'd do a quick introduction to this episode as Peter Miller and I did basically a straight run through on our County Championship preview, but I split it into two episodes, so hopefully you've listened to the previous episode in which we previewed Division 1. This is the episode focusing on Division 2. Enjoy! Kind of in the same vein as we were pretty sure Surrey would sweep all before them in Division 1. I kind of feel the same way about Lancashire in Division 2 this year.
Yeah, I'd say they do well. Middlesex shouldn't be in Division 2.
They were terrible with the bat last year. They couldn't bat for shit.
Yeah, they were. They were terrible. And it's one of those ones where I'm just like, we're not really sure. Like in the 2020, it's a question you got tweeted, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In the 2020, I don't know why they do as badly. I don't know why they do as badly as they do in the 2020. You know, I've never really understood why they're not like consistently winning stuff. They've had a big shake-up though, haven't they? Ravi Patel's gone, which I think's a shame because I kind of thought he was going to be something and kind of never went on. Nick Compton's retired, probably to go and do underwear modelling in the US. I would have thought something along those lines.
Yeah. James Franklin's gone to Durham as the head coach at Durham now, if I remember. So. And James Fuller's off to Hampshire. So,
and they've had a change, haven't they? And so that head coach, deputy head coach, or assistant coach, Stuart Law and Nick Pothers, who of course were doing the same roles for Cricket West Indies until relatively recently. They've kind of joined, and I think they should do well. It's just like you look down the Middlesex squad, right? And they've just got some really good players. You know, you've got Tom Helm, who was we had him as a loan signing at Glamorgan. He really impressed me. He should be doing better. You know, Tim Murtagh will take 45, 50 Division 2 wickets easy. Sam Robson should be bossing Division 2.
Yeah.
I think John Simpson's a really strong player. Nick Gubbins, I think, could potentially, if the wind in the right direction, perhaps turn himself into an England prospect. I don't think he's quite there yet. No, I don't think...
I think he's on the radar, isn't he, though?
Yeah, he's on the radar, but I don't think he's quite there yet. And then Dawa Milan, who, you know, has been an England player and isn't now, obviously. But I think, you know, he's obviously shown what he can do, captain in the side. There's going to have...
Well, Toby Rowland-Jones is fit again as well.
Yeah. You know, so it's you know, they should be doing better than they do. And I don't know why they don't. And I think it'll be interesting. I mean, you know, to have... I think overseas players-wise in the 2020 as well, they're going to have AB de Villiers and Majib El Rahman.
Yeah.
You know, that's great. That's exciting stuff. You know, AB's AB, right?
Yeah.
RCB the other day. And I think Majib is probably one of the more exciting cricketers going around at the moment. Probably, obviously, the Afghan that everybody talks about is Rashid Khan, who was playing for Sussex last year, right? But you know, they should do better. But yeah, no, I think Lancashire just have a very strong squad as well. I think they're probably ones that should be doing well. I mean, I think Gleeson's an interesting signing from Northamptonshire for Lancashire.
Yeah. I just think for me, Lancashire, the big thing they've got is the batting, because I mean, Keaton Jennings may be back permanently, possibly, depending on what else goes on with England. Dane Villas is captain now, but you know, he did the business with the bat. I really like Alex Davies as a player. I think he's a really good batsman and, you know, perfectly competent wicketkeeper as well. And then they've got Liam Livingston to come back from the IPL. And overseas-wise, they've got Joe Burns and or Glenn Maxwell, depending on what point of the season we're at. That's a heck of a batting line.
And they've got Chanderpaul still, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Great thing. I saw a photo of him he was playing 20 years ago in a test match, playing for the West Indies in that game where Lara scored 375.
Yeah.
Right. And he literally looks no different than he does now.
Oh yeah, it's insane.
It's just he hasn't changed at all. He looks exactly the same. You know, Shiv Narayan actually his son plays for Guyana as well in the first class championship. Tiao Narayan. So yeah. So they played together.
That's pretty cool.
First class cricket. Yeah, it's cool. So there's not many that have done that. Alan Butcher did it with Gary at Glamorgan, I think.
Yep.
So yeah, here's that's a quiz question for you, for your podcast listeners.
Yeah.
How many fathers and sons have played in the same team? So yeah, no, and probably one of the biggest disappointments over the last few years is kind of how Haseeb Hameed never kicked on from that 2016 India tour, right?
Yeah.
It's not that long ago, is it? I mean, we're talking, 3 years ago? But he's just not really found a way to keep doing it the way that he was.
And it sounds like I think his contract's at the end of this season. And I don't know if you saw it, I think it was on the Cricketer website. Paul Allett's comments struck me because they weren't the comments of someone who was really confident or really trying to encourage a guy to turn it around. They seemed a little bit like, yeah, he's clinging on by his fingertips. And it's kind of like, Christ, that's a pretty stark way to put it, given where Hameed was, as you say, like 2 years ago.
It's hard being, cricket's hard.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and then they've got Glenn Maxwell, right?
Yeah,
for a big bit of the season.
Yeah, I think he plays 5 championship games in the 2020s, and I guess the Royal London One Day Cup maybe as well. I can't remember but they've got Joe Burns as the other one. That's their 2 overseas players, which isn't exactly like a bad alternative overseas player. Joe Burns is a competent cricketer.
The Morgan's Joe Burns.
out on loan to Lancashire for the year.
out on loan to Lancashire for the year. Anyone that's ever played. I'm so desperate that I was excited. I was having a conversation with Mazza Ashad. Have you come across Mazza on Twitter?
I don't think I have.
Anyway, Mazza's great. But I was having a conversation with him today about Welsh-born international captains, because Imad Wasim captained Pakistan today. Mm-hmm. And we think he was the 3rd Welshman to captain an international team. Now, if I hadn't been going on about it quite so much, I'm not sure Imad Wasim would remember that he was born in Swansea. So from that point of view, yeah. So I reckon there's been 3 Welsh international captains, right?
Okay.
Tony Lewis, obviously.
Okay. Former
BBC commentator. Yeah. Imad Wasim, and then 1 test in I think 1932 when Cyril Walters was the captain. This is how I spend my time. I'm sorry. I am who I am. There's no getting away from who I am as a human being. But yeah, that's where we are. So, if you played for Glamorgan ever, did you become... when Sean Marsh scored 100 for Australia at Cardiff in an ODI last year or the year before, I can't remember which, I was pointing out in the press box that he was the first Glamorgan player to score an ODI 100 in Cardiff. And I think he played at that stage in his career, he played for them 3 times. So I'll edit. When the last time you had a Test cricketer from your county was Simon Jones in 2005, you start clinging on to these things, right?
Is this whether all the CPL press releases this year that involve Viv Richards get rewritten as Glamorgan's Viv Richards, just to see how many you can slip through?
I've not met Sir Viv, but I did name my son after him. So he's called. I've mentioned this before. He's called Isaac, my son. But my daughter's middle name is Lara.
Oh.
And I did point out while very drunk in a nightclub in Trinidad to Brian Lara that I'd named my daughter after him. And I don't know. I'd had too many gin and tonics to tell you exactly how he took the news.
Wait, is this on a par with the Stuart Lee story?
It's not quite as bad as the Stuart Lee story. We should probably tell the Stuart Lee story. I was really drunk at a comedy festival in Mid-Wales, and I wanted to take a photo with Stuart Lee to send to Dave Tickner, who couldn't make the comedy festival. He's coming this year, but he couldn't make it that year. And I dropped my phone, and I bent down to pick it up and put my face in Stuart Lee's crotch. And Stuart Lee is looking at my wife, who stood behind me, with just absolute horror in his eyes. And he's like one of my heroes. So, but no, I don't think it was maybe that bad. I mean, you'd have to ask Brian. When you get Brian on the podcast,
I'll be sure to ask him.
Just ask him. Do you remember that drunk, chubby idiot in that bar in I think it was which nightclub was it? Residence. That was the name of the nightclub in Port Spain. If you're in Port Spain, highly recommended. Anyway, should we carry on talking about Division 2?
Yeah.
I'm even more of a tangent. You can see that I'm carrying on drinking beer during this podcast. I'll keep on talking.
That's normal. That was normal. Well, always traditionally had been my habit. I don't know why I'm not. This is maybe I've run out. I can't remember. Anyway, we think Lancashire are good. We think Middlesex are good. I think Sussex are quite good too.
Well, Sussex have a really strong side, you know? I mean, they're going to see a lot less of Jofra, right?
Yep. But maybe more of Chris Jordan, maybe?
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think Chris Jordan will be in the World Cup squad, right? So you're going to lose in May, June and July.
Yeah.
Because that World Cup, although there's only 10 teams, goes on a long old while.
A long time,
A long time. But, I mean, they've got some, Laurie Evans is kind of doing what he needs to do for them. Do you know who's a good player who I really like? There's George Garton. He's a really good bowler. I've always been impressed by him.
I think he'll get a big chance this year because Ola Robertson, he took 74 wickets last year. He was the leading English wicket taker. But to even take like 60 again this year would be a pretty good return. I mean, 74 every year is almost impossible, I'd say. So somebody else needs to pick up the slack with the ball is what I'm driving at.
Well, they've got Phil Salt as well. He was born in Wales. They've got some good players. There's Tim Alvell, she's playing in the white ball stuff for them. They've got a couple of quite exciting youngsters kicking around in there. I think Delray Rawlins, the Bermudan lad, should probably be kicked on more than he has. Angus Robson always did well at Leicestershire, and he should be doing well as well. I think he's probably the less talented of the two brothers. I would say Sam's probably a better player. But yeah, you've got David Visa. I think I've always kind of been. They've never really found that. When they were winning championships, they've never really kind of brought back together that squad that's punching above its weight, right? But I don't necessarily see them going up this year. But I'm kind of always a little bit surprised to see them in Division 2. Does that make it? That's ridiculous.
No, I mean they were third last year, and the thing that struck me was they just kind of seemed to get it done with the bat more by, I mean, Ben Brown got 900 runs. I shouldn't skirt around that, but other players, I mean, Salt, he scored over 700. Visa got 538. Burgess got over 500. They for a team that doesn't necessarily outside of Archer and maybe Jordan have a star name with the bat. They didn't have their own equivalent of like Joe Clark when he was at Worcestershire. But they just kind of get the job done, if that makes sense. And you almost feel they've had such a minimal turnover of squad. They've got Mir Hamza coming in as the overseas. It's almost a like-for-like replacement of Ishant Sharma, Seamer overseas player coming in. It's just like, I just feel like having that squad continuity puts them in good place.
Yeah, I commentated on a game where they had Garton, Jordan and Archer as their seam bowling attack. And you're like, it should just be, like in Division 2 in early season wickets, the three of them should just be bowling sides out for 210.
Yeah. It's almost unfair.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It's interesting to see how it goes. Do you know the thing we didn't mention in the last podcast that we probably should have, which I think is quite interesting, is Gloucestershire. I suppose they may as well move on to Gloucestershire, shall we? Yeah. Gloucestershire losing Liam Norwell and Craig Miles, both.
Yeah.
Quite interesting. Because I think both of them have been pretty good. I've watched a lot of Gloucestershire because they're
not far away.
Over. So when I've been given BBC games to do, they've kind of said, well, there isn't a Glamorgan game, but tell you what, go to Bristol. So I've seen, and that means I get to spend, I don't know how much county commentary you listen to, but I've got to spend a lot of time with Bob Hunt, who's the BBC commentator for Gloucestershire, who's one of the great human beings. Not only is he great fun to speak to, he also brings custard slices with him every morning, which is eternally to his credit. But he's one of those ones that will kind of, he'll try and get you in trouble by winding you up to say things you probably shouldn't.
I feel like Gloucestershire in that kind of muddy, I call it the muddy middle because, like, I'd say we've mentioned Lancashire, Middlesex, Sussex. I'd say Worcestershire are probably in the conversation for promotion as well. And after that, no idea. I've no idea who'll finish where in Division 2 outside of that top four.
I mean, Glamorgan will finish bottom. Right?
You're still in a division with Derbyshire. There's always a chance that you won't finish bottom with Derbyshire.
There's a chance. No, they'll be okay. They're not going to get promoted. There's no way they're going to get promoted. But they've got some good cricketers there. I mean, Chris Dent is. I've seen him score some, play some really great innings. I think Ryan Higgins is a good bowler. I think Benny Howell is a really clever cricketer. They're going to miss. I mean, Norwell and losing your opening pair. Is tough, right? So, I think David Payne and Chris Liddle are a downgrade from Miles and Norwell. And there's no getting away from that. But, like Jack Taylor, Will Tavares, Graham Van Buren, Chris Dent, Ian Cobain, they're not a bad batting lineup, but they're a good Division 2 batting lineup rather than a team that you can necessarily see in pushing for promotion.
They seem functional. They're a functional cricket team. There's enough there to win games, but equally if they got skittled or panned all around the ground, I wouldn't be that surprised either. It's just like, they're a team. They probably won't finish bottom.
Yeah,
but
no, I think we've kind of talked about the guys that we think probably could potentially push for promotion. Worcestershire are an interesting one, aren't they? Because they were that team, weren't they? The West Bromwich Albion of county cricket for a long while, weren't they? And now they've dropped back a little bit, haven't they? They've lost Joe Clark, who's gone to Nottinghamshire. They've signed Wade Parnell as a Colpack, haven't they? And Ricky Vessels.
Yeah, I like those signings, Worcestershire, especially Parnell. I think with Leach fit, Barnard, Tong, and Parnell, that's a pretty good seam attack. Yeah,
and I like Worcestershire. It's just a team I like. I just always found them quite easy to deal with.
I think everybody does. It's impossible not to like them. But equally, what are they gonna do? Tom Fell's a good player.
I think the thing is they've lost probably the two best batsmen that they had in terms of prospects in Tom Kohler-Cadmore and Joe Clark. And I think that's kind of the difficulty, isn't it? Now, if we go back to that thing that kind of the cream rises to the top and people want to be playing Div 1 cricket to play for England.
Yeah.
You, as kind of a club like Worcestershire that are kind of never really established themselves as one of the big Div 1 sides, it does mean that you'll end up losing young talent like Kohler-Cadmore, like Joe Clark, because they'll go, do you know what, I need to be playing for a Yorkshire or a Nottinghamshire if I want to be taken seriously as an England player. I think, they've still got Ross Whiteley kicking around, who I think probably should have played more 2020s for England.
But that's kind of, is that where they're going to fall into like their being their thing? Maybe to an extent, maybe like Northants did. I think Northants was more by design. But now Worcestershire have won the Blast. It's kind of like, well, actually, we can do this. We can do well in this format. It will make us money because people like watching the 2020 Blast, despite what the ECB might like to suggest. Do they just kind of fall into that? Yeah, we'll compete in the Championship. We might get promoted and yo-yo a bit, but at the end of the day, our bread and butter is going to become the 2020 Blast moving forward.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think that's a dangerous strategy to have.
It is, I agree.
In this particular time. Here's a controversial opinion, right? The 100 may succeed or may not, but I think the cricket itself will be fine. I don't think it'll be that different from 2020. You can watch. You watch a one-day game. I've watched one-day games that were 40 overs and 60 overs, and it was still a one-day game.
Yeah.
And I think you'll have a very similar situation with the 100, where I think it'll just be like watching a 2020. I don't think the cadence of it's going to be particularly different. And I think whether it does well or not won't be because of the reasons people seem to be complaining about it. I think it will be off-field factors in terms of how they position it as a product will have more of an impact, and how well it goes on Freeview TV, free-to-air TV, than it will be on the cricket itself. The fact that it's 5 ball overs instead of 6 ball overs doesn't really make much difference. It's still cricket. We had 8 ball overs in test matches for years in Australia, and then 6 ball overs in other test matches. it'll be fine. I think I'm quite keen for it to do well. I think it probably should do well. I think the bit that makes me worry about is keeping both. I think you kind of needed to shit or get off the pot really, and make a decision as to whether or not you wanted to have one T20 style competition rather than two. And I'll tell you what, here's an interesting thing about the 100 is, and maybe something that should be a slight concern for people, is now if you're in the top echelon of players in white ball cricket, you won't play 50 over cricket at county level.
No, and this is a point George Bell brought up on last week's episode, because we talked about the England team and obviously the white ball team being part of that in the World Cup year. And, he made the very valid point. This year is probably England's best chance to win a World Cup, certainly for the foreseeable future, if not ever again, quite kind of thing.
If they don't win it this time, there's no way they shouldn't. I mean,
because the next one's in India, and then all of our top players aren't going to be playing 50 over cricket anymore, as you said. It's like,
well, they'll be fine, right? And I think the skills are basically transferable. Yeah, and I think it's less of a concern for me, the guys that are already there, than it is about the guys in terms of talent development. Yeah. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's what George was kind of hinting towards as well, I think. So,
if you're an England player, you can play any type of cricket, you're good enough. Yeah. But I think, it's just an interesting way to go. I'm fascinated to watch it. I'll happily go along and watch. And I genuinely hope it does well, because, and I don't really like the county fans that seem to be cheering against the idea of it doing well. I can understand why they don't like it, and their thoughts are that it isn't really where cricket should be going. But I just kind of find that a bit, that kind of parochial attitude towards the type of cricket you like, rather than supporting the sport in general, to kind of find a bigger audience is perhaps not. It leaves a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, to be honest. I mean, if you feel that way, great, but it's not for me. Yeah, we should probably talk about Glamorgan, shouldn't we? I've kind of interspersed my thoughts on Glamorgan throughout, but we've not really discussed it, have we?
Yeah, let's do Glamorgan, because as I kind of said, the beyond that top four in Division 2, you could talk about teams in any order. We've touched on Gloucestershire, so why not Glamorgan?
And Aaron Donald's gone, which is a shame. They got Sean Marsh as their overseas player. How much they'll see him, I don't know. I suspect he'll be in the World Cup squad and kicking around the Ashes squad. So that's interesting. I think they haven't really done a huge amount to address the issues that they had last year, in that their issue was their top order batting. Now they've added Joe Root and lost an Aaron Donald. Billy
Root before anybody. Before anybody's there's somebody somewhere had a heart attack. Yeah.
So they've got Billy Root, but Billy Root averages 22 in first class cricket. I've done him a disservice. I've just looked him up. He's got a first class average of 30, right?
Okay.
But he's 26, right? And he's kind of been. He was at Yorkshire for a bit, wasn't he? And then he was at Nottinghamshire, and now he's gone to Glamorgan, and he's never really kind of found his niche, and never really kind of kicked on. So I think this is quite a big opportunity to him, because he's going to be an important part of the squad. But I don't necessarily think you've kind of gone, right, okay, that's fixed any of the problems that they had last year. So the lads that they've signed in the off-season, there's 3 youngsters. There's Callum Taylor, Mansky and McElroy, who are all young kids that I wouldn't necessarily expect to play. And then there's this lad Charlie Hemphrey, I think.
Hemphrey, with an E,
who I decent things about, but again, he's someone who's played a fair bit of first class cricket in Australia and averages 26, 27. It's not like somebody who's like, he's definitely going to come in and do well early season on English pitches, right? So from that point of view, you're still kind of there going, there's that kind of group of quite exciting young kids that really need to kick on, yeah? So there's the likes of Kieran Carlson, Lucas Carey, Kieran Bull, Colin Brown, who you could be there going, right, okay, they need to go on. But actually, the guys I think probably need to start showing that there's something about them, are actually that next group of kids from the one before. They're not really kids anymore. So you got David Lloyd, who I think's 26, 27. They're kind of Owen Morgan, who is 23, 24. Andrew Salter, who's now coming up for 25. They've had a good few years of playing first-class cricket now. And they're the guys that genuinely need to kick on. But the concern is, you've got, they don't have Colin Ingram now. They've made Chris Cook the captain, which 100% deserves. Very good player, lovely bloke. Want to see him doing as well as possible. But that's a lot to be a hugely important number 6 or 7 batsman, the wicket keeper for the side, and the captain.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount to ask. But they've actually got a half decent. Do you know what I mean? They've got a decent bowling attack. They've got Marshall Delanga, Lucas Carey, and
Hogan and Van der Hoogten.
Hogan and Tim van der Hoogten. And then, of course, Graham Wagg. As he bats, bowls left arm seam and left arm spin, sometimes in the same over. Have you ever seen him do that? And he genuinely does. He'll switch from left arm seam to slow left arm in the same over. So he's obviously Glamorgan's answer to Sir Gary Sobers.
Clearly.
So I mean, I don't necessarily think they fixed all of it. I think they just kind of need to be a happier camp, and they clearly weren't massively happy with Croft in charge that most recent year when he went. And I think him leaving was kind of inevitable after the season they had, where they didn't make it out of the group stages in any of the limited overs competition and finished dead last in the county championship.
Is that going to be the most significant change? Maynard coming in for Croft, do you think?
I think actually perhaps a more significant change is that Hugh Morris is now no longer MD and the director of cricket.
Right. Okay.
That director of cricket role now belongs to Mark Wallace, who obviously former Glamorgan captain, wicketkeeper for years and years, played 200 consecutive first-class games for Glamorgan. Great guy, but that's a big role to fill, So it's kind of, we'll see where they end up and who they end up. There's guys there that have been playing first-class cricket for a while now, and they need to kick on.
Yeah.
And that's what I'd like to see happen. And I think because the club has decided they're not going to spend a huge amount of money on playing staff, they're not going to have big star names and all the rest of it, other than their overseas signings. Those guys need to kick on and kind of make something of themselves. Otherwise, they'll be like the previous group of guys like Will Owen, Hugh Waters, those guys who kind of played, never really made it and then got moved on. And I think that's my concern for this next group of players. And I think this is a really big year for them. Because like I said, guys like Salter are the senior players in that squad now, rather than the youngsters. And they need to play like it. So yeah, we'll see. I'm hoping I'm going to get to watch a fair bit of them this year. Yeah. It upsets me when they do badly. I'm far more upset by Glamorgan doing badly than England doing badly.
Okay, so kind of as we touched on before, it's such a minefield or so open, or I don't know how everybody's minding the same shit. I don't know how we want to put it, but there's 4 other teams we haven't.
I like the way you just described it there. That's perfect.
I don't know what to make of Division 2. We've kind of said that, so I'm just going to do them in alphabetical order, the ones we've got left. So we'll start with Derbyshire, who might kick on and do well and finish 5th, 6th, whatever. Or
a lot of people go right last year. Gary Wilson moved on. Yeah. Ben Slay moved on. Obviously, Dwayne Olivier was playing for them, but has now gone to Yorkshire.
Viljoen, I don't know. Hardisviljoen. Is it Hoyen?
Hardisviljoen.
There we go. My pronunciation is terrible. I apologise to everyone. But losing him and Olivier in the same winter, call it, that hits their pace attack pretty hard, even with Tony Pellegrino
they've got
chipping away as he does.
Yeah, they got Logan Van Beek, right, coming in as their overseas Kiwi guy, isn't he? But with a Safa name. He's all right. He's a good bowler. Yeah.
It just that sums up Derbyshire. Well, yeah. It's like Godalming and Madsen are really good players. Matt Critchley had a really good year last year, with bat and his leg spin. It's a team that could do okay, or they could absolutely naff all again. I just, they've got Kane Richardson coming in for the T20 Blast. I just wonder if they're focusing on that, having seen what Northants did, and said, well, actually, maybe we're better off trying to emulate that, even with everything that's going on with the 100, rather than chasing a promotion we're just not going to get.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, again, we'll see. I'm not expecting huge things from them, really. No. I think, they're not going to get promoted this year.
No,
whether or not they finish 5th or 10th, I don't know, but I would suspect it would be somewhere in between.
Yeah. So Durham, I guess, is the next one as we go alphabetically. I suppose the big talking point, they've had several changes off the field. Obviously, Paul Collingwood's retired as well. James Franklin, Marcus North taking up a couple of roles up there as well as head coach and is it director of cricket. Marcus North has been appointed as.
He was up there working for a cricket club. He's a lovely man. I've worked with him at the Champions Trophy on one of the games doing some commentary. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Glamorgan's Marcus North, of course.
Glamorgan's Marcus North, of course. Not Glamorgan's, but returning home is Ben Rain, a guy from County Durham, which I think is a good signing for them. He's a decent bowler and he can back it about.
Alex Lees as well. Alex Lees is a big move for him.
Yeah, huge.
I think he was kind of someone who people were talking about as being someone who could push on in his career and never really did. No. It's a big opportunity for him. He's going to get to play a lot of cricket. And people talk about, like, the big thing that everyone kept banging on about was Cameron Bancroft getting the captaincy. This is me being me, right? But I didn't really see what all the fuss was about with apart from the fact that it was pretty shoddily put together. But the idea that those lads should have been banned for a year for doing what they did with the ball is just nonsense.
Do you know what? What gets me is whether you think the ban was too long, too short, whatever. If it's been served, I'm inclined to say, look, they've done their time. Can we just move on? Like David Warner today in the IPL just smashed it today. It was brilliant to watch. And
and the sport needs villains, right? There's a reason why WWE has villains, right? Because you need that. And not that I'm saying Warner is, because I don't really think he is, but like the idea that giving Cameron Bancroft the captaincy at Durham in some way sends a bad message because he was banned for a year for something that he potentially should have sat out 2 test matches for. It's just so much nonsense. But I think it's a good sign. I think he's a good player and I think he could potentially be back for the Ashes, depending on how that Australian test squad do. It's absolute banter that Australia have been so terrible at ODIs for the whole of the time in between World Cups. And then all of a sudden come good. Bless them. Joey, and they'll end up winning it, won't they? The bastards. I think again, I can't see them necessarily getting promoted. No. The guys that they've let go in I watched Barry McCarthy a fair bit last year, but I wasn't. I think probably letting him go was probably the right move. Yeah, Marcus North and James Franklin, I think, will be an interesting combination as two quite level-headed and smart guys at the top of there to kind of rebuild things. I think the time for them to be being, oh, woe is me about the ECB sanctions for them, in essence, going bust is probably now's the time to move on from that.
I definitely agree there. I think this is the year they can maybe do that. Like you say, we've got Lees, they've added Rain. Bancroft is, regardless of everything else, he's a really good player. He's a genuinely good cricketer. And for the captaincy stuff, I don't know who else they would have put in. People saying, I should have given it to Rushworth. Maybe he doesn't want it. It's not necessarily the best decision always giving just because he's your best bowler or best this or best that doesn't mean he's going to be the ideal captain. It's all a bit...
Just see how it goes. Yeah. I mean, if your issue with Cameron Bancroft being the captain is on how good a captain he could be, me and you are not going to disagree at all. Yeah. If your issue on Cameron Bancroft being the captain is any way to do with some sort of moralising ethical argument, then we're going to have to, we might have to have a bit of an argument about it. Just genuinely, I mean, there's bigger crooks. I just think he's, despite the fact he's got the heaviest head in the Western Australia dressing room, as we found out. Well, last winter, it's just whatever. It's done. It's been going on far too long. We did a book recommendation in the last one, didn't we? So we should do one here. I've not read Jeff Lemon's book on this, but apparently it's really good. I do need to get it. I have read Gideon Haig's called Crossing the Line. That's well worth getting your hands on. It's good. It's really good. Very readable. And for a Gideon book, it properly races along as well. Because sometimes with Gideon, he's amazing, but you'll just kind of have to find some time to read it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The one for me is whether a book you could read on a plane is always one that I think is easygoing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It makes sense.
I could imagine reading Crossing the Line on a plane. It's good. It's worth reading. But yeah, no, Durham aren't going to get promoted. I don't think they'll finish dead last.
Leicestershire. I felt like they've made progress under Paul Nixon last year. They've retained the services of Mohamed Abbas as overseas player. That's huge in my opinion, but they've also lost 9 players. Either they've moved on, been released, whatever. They've had 3 guys come in. I don't really know what to make of them again. Like some of the others, Abbas might absolutely tear it up, but they lean very heavily on Ackerman, Horton, and Dexter with a bat. I think
if you look at the guys that they've let go, right, in kind of like Eckersley, Patini, Richard Jones, Michael Carberry, that's kind of Paul Nixon. I don't know what Nico's decided to do in that instant, but if he's kind of there going, I want to reshape this dressing room in a different way. I can't see these lads being the guys that are doing it. And actually, if we sign them on, they're going to be quite a big wage for us to keep on. Yeah. And we could potentially just kind of try and reset the dressing room in a slightly different direction. It's interesting. They've lost Wazim Khan, haven't they? Who I think was doing good things as their CEO.
Yes.
He's gone to go and work for the PCB, which I think will be interesting. He's always been someone that just massively impressed me every time I spoke to him. I think he was always quite an impressive guy. Paul Nixon's lovely, and I think he's a player's coach and will bring a lot out of any of the young kids that they've got coming up. Chris Wright signed for them, right, from Warwickshire?
He did, yeah. Right, Chris Wright, Will Davis, and Aaron Lilly might be a decent signing from Lancashire, potentially. Maybe.
So, we'll see. I think losing Ben Rain, I think, will be a big thing for them more than perhaps the others.
Zach Chappell, potentially, yeah.
Zach Chappell's a good player as well. I don't know. Again, it's same as Durham in Derbyshire, really. Maybe they'll do worse than those two, but they're not going to get promoted.
So that leaves us with Northants, who I guess again they're probably not going to finish last, but I don't see them getting promoted either. They've lost Ben Duckett, who we kind of touched on when we talked about Notts in the last episode. We mentioned Gleeson as well, obviously earlier in this one, going to Lancashire. Crooks retired. Jason Holder and Temba Bavuma as overseas players, right? They're 2 great pickups for Northants.
Jason's so good.
Yeah.
So, I just, the fact that they've signed Blessing Mzabarbani makes me happy because that's a great name for the young Zimbabwean lad.
It is, actually, yeah.
There's some great names in Zimbabwe.
I like that. What's the best thing you can say about this team? Oh, they've signed a guy with a really great name.
I did that book with Alan Butcher on his time as Zimbabwe coach and making sure that I got the names right. And there was a couple of guys that had almost identical names, but they were like hugely different people. And I kept having it when I was going through editing it. I had to keep going back to Butch and be like, "Is this who you meant?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's what I like." Right, okay, just double checking. And then I saw the excellent Steve James, who's hilarious. And the first thing he said to me was like, "I read the Zimbabwe book, thought it was good." I was like, cheers. He said, "Here are the 4 errors I spotted." Thanks to J-Mo, much appreciated. But yeah, no, I think Northamptonshire have always been quite good fun to watch. I think they're
better than the sum of their parts. Is that the fair?
Yeah, no, I think so, and I think they've just got some like really solid players who will put in some decent numbers for you, and they're just really well led by Alex Wakely, who I think is a good man. I think they've got the likes of Josh Cobb, Brett Hutton, Rob Keogh, Richard Levy. Do you mean they're just solid 2 players who will bang out 700 to 900 runs a year for you, right? I think Ben Sanderson's a really good bowler. I'll do well for them. Yeah, and Graham White's always impressed me as a spinner, actually. I think he's underrated in Div 2. So, yeah, no, I think they'll do okay. they'll do okay. But again, I don't think I can imagine them finishing 6th or 7th quite happily. Maybe as high as 3rd or 4th. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. And of course, they have the other Curran in Ben Curran as well. So that'd be interesting to see what he can do. Even was he 20? He'll be 23 in early June. He did okay from last year. Averaged 30 in 5 matches. So interesting to see what he does.
Imagine being that good at cricket and still being the 3rd best cricketer in your 4th best if you include his dad.
Yes. Well,
I mean, like that must be so painful if you're there going, well, my dad and my 2 brothers are better than me, but I'm still a pro. I mean, that would just be heartbreaking.
It's like Keith Gretzky, Wayne Gretzky's brother. It's like the highest scoring brothers in NHL history are the Gretzkys, even if you don't count the points that Keith scored because Wayne scored so many. They're still the highest scoring brothers. It's like...
it's just, I mean, but yeah, no, I mean, I honestly think Sam Curran is going to be a superstar. And I think he'll play 100 tests for England. I think Tom will probably play half that many. I genuinely, it sounds terrible to say, I'm not sure I've seen Ben bat. Maybe that isn't terrible to say. He's not played a huge amount of cricket.
No, he only played 5 first-class games last year, so it's not like we've got a big sample size on which to determine.
I didn't get to watch a lot of counter cricket. I was saying to you before we recorded this podcast, I was worried I wouldn't know what I was talking about. So apologies if I've sounded like I'm an idiot. Yeah, I think, again, like you said, the Div 2 previews kind of like, these are the 3 good teams, and then there's 7 teams that like you could put in any order you wanted. I'd say Leicestershire and Glamorgan are probably the 2 teams that I think would probably finish in the bottom 2.
So who did we have going up? We had Lancashire and you think Middlesex this year?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, maybe Middlesex.
I think I started writing a preview post for the blog, and I think I went Sussex at 2 and Middlesex then at 3. But I could quite happily swap Sussex and Middlesex around. I think Lancashire will run away with it, but
if you Lancashire, Middlesex, and Sussex, 2 of those 3.
Yeah.
Then I would say probably Durham and Derbyshire 4th and 5th.
Yeah.
And then everybody else, maybe Worcestershire will get 4th or 5th.
I think Worcester have got enough to take 4th and maybe push whoever comes in 3rd. But
here's the danger for county cricket, is that there's probably only 11 or 12 really good county sides. Maybe here's one. Maybe there should only be 12 county sides. Can you say that? Are you allowed to say that?
I mean, you said it.
Not sure.
You've said it now.
I've said it, but I'm not sure. I think that might basically be heresy.
It is, but you've still said it out.
Oh well. Everyone hates me anyway, Rob. It's all good.
So if people want to direct their hatred directly at you, where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter. At the Cricket Geek. You can tell me how dreadful I am. Lots of people do. I'm overfollowed, I think is how I would describe myself on Twitter.
Oversubscribed.
Oversubscribed. There's not that many people that are interested in my opinions, I'm sure. Make sure you watch the CPL, yeah?
Yeah, I like that. That was good. That was the guerrilla marketing there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Imagine if you've got this far into these 2 podcasts for that plug, then you deserve that little bit of marketing. But thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to talk to you,
it's been brilliant to speak to you again. Hopefully, we'll actually finally get to catch up at some point on the county circuit somewhere this year. It'd be nice.
Are you doing the World Cup?
I'm not going. Tripping over my words. God, how can I not be able to say I haven't bought any tickets? How did I mess that up at this point? I haven't got any tickets or whatever. I was just going to watch on TV. Though I am slightly tempted, depending on how my daughter takes to the All-Star cricket program, to maybe see about one of the England women's games.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, because she's starting to get into sort of a few games in the backyard, and we've signed her up for the All-Star program at my local club, and she's sort of getting into it. And my dad will definitely encourage any interest in cricket, as he did in me when I was a youth, and obviously I have my own interest as well, much to my wife's chagrin. But
my wife's long given up on caring. Doesn't understand or care who any of these people are that I talk about. Just no interest. She had less interest than my daughter when I took her to the cricket in the Caribbean. But it was great. I mean, women's cricket's the way forward. That's where we need to be trying to grow the game as much as possible, I think. Thanks for having me.